The Honorable Marcia Carroll, Minister in the Division of Economic Affairs and Investment, Government of Barbados. His Excellency Scott Ferguson Wood, UK High Commissioner to Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean. Mr. Jonathan Knott, Her Majesty's Trade Commissioner for Latin America and the Caribbean. Mr. Darren Henry, Prime Minister's Trade Envoy to the Commonwealth Caribbean. Senator Dr. Lynette Holder, Member of the Senate and Chair of the Board of Directors, Caribbean Export Development Agency. Mr. Percival Murray, Director General, CARIFORUM Directorate. Dr. Armstrong Alexis, Deputy Secretary General of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM. Mr. Deodat Maharaj, Executive Director, Caribbean Export Development Agency. Ms. Chanel Richards, Chief Research Officer, Prime Minister's Office. Members of the Diplomatic Corps from both CARIFORUM and the UK who are joining us online. Members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, joining us here at the LESC in Barbados, and to the over 500 persons who are joining us virtually. A pleasant good morning to our friends from the Caribbean and a pleasant good afternoon for our friends from the United Kingdom. My name is Demi Sinanan and I am the Manager for Competitiveness and Export Promotion at Caribbean Export Development Agency, and it is an honor for me to chair this high-level summit entitled Expanding Trade under the CARIFORUM-United Kingdom Economic Partnership Agreement. This summit represents a bold partnership between Caribbean Export Development Agency and the UK Department of International Trade, and it is designed to highlight the newly signed EPA between the CARIFORUM region and the United Kingdom, to continue to promote trade and investment between both regions using this EPA as the vehicle to get this done. We have a very packed agenda this morning, so we want to go right into it. Just a couple of notes from the program. Unfortunately, the Prime Minister, Mrs. Mia Mottley, is not able to join us here this morning, but she has sent Honorable Minister Carroll, who will do her keynote address. So with that being said, I would first like to invite Mr. Deodat Maharaj, who is the Executive Director of Caribbean Export Development Agency, to deliver his opening remarks. Deodat?
Thank you so much, Demi. The Honorable Marcia Carroll, Minister in the Division of Economic Affairs and Investment. Your Excellency Scott Ferguson Wood, High Commissioner of the United Kingdom to Barbados. Mr. Jonathan Knott, UK Trade Envoy to Latin America and the Caribbean. The Honorable Darren Henry, the UK Prime Minister's Trade Envoy for the Commonwealth Caribbean. Senator, the Honorable Dr. Lynette Holder, the Chair of our Board of Directors. Mr. Percival Murray, Director General of CARIFORUM. Dr. Armstrong Alexis, Deputy Secretary General of the Caribbean Community. Ms. Chanel Richards from the Prime Minister's Office. Members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a most pleasant good morning to you who are here in Barbados, and good afternoon to those who are joining from the United Kingdom. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this summit put together by the Caribbean Export Development Agency and the United Kingdom's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. We have convened the summit to advance a subject matter that is important to our people, especially in these unprecedented times. That is expanding trade under the CARIFORUM-UK Economic Partnership Agreement, which entered into force in January of this year. For us, it is more than a document. It represents a viable option to create jobs and opportunity for our people here in the Caribbean, and of course, also across the Atlantic. This event comes on the heels of the UNCTAD 15 conference, which was also recently so successfully held in Barbados, as well as the recently concluded COP26 meeting in Glasgow. I would like to congratulate the United Kingdom on its leadership at COP26 and being a champion for climate action. 2021 is indeed proving itself to be a year which is presenting opportunities for decisive leadership, the realignment of development agendas, and creating a once-in-a-generation opportunity to press the reset button on our development agenda so business can play an important leadership role as we seek to create precious jobs and opportunity for our people. Indeed, the overwhelming response we are seeing here today, with close to 500 participants registering as of yesterday for this summit, is clear evidence of the enthusiasm around deepening trade and investment between the United Kingdom and the CARIFORUM Caribbean. We are particularly happy with the high level of participation from you in the business community. Signed on the 1st of January 2021, the CARIFORUM-UK Economic Partnership Agreement has the potential to make a big difference in our economies. However, we need to give purpose to the document so it can generate real game-changing outcomes for our people. This is precisely why we at the Caribbean Export are supporting today's virtual summit, so we can look at how we can work together to give life and meaning to this agreement. It is clear that we must deliver concrete and practical results where it matters most, on the ground and at the firm level. Given the range of challenges we all face now, exacerbated by the pandemic, business as usual simply will not work. As the institution in the CARIFORUM region, with the remit for private sector development, we are also clear that to build a resilient Caribbean, trade and investment are vital, as is business being at the epicenter of its agenda. When we look at the data, trade between the UK and CARIFORUM Caribbean countries currently stands at United States dollars approximately $3.88 billion annually. Given the historical and strong people-to-people ties, this is a fraction of what can be realized. Therefore, to make this partnership realize its full potential, we need to be both bold and ambitious in forging a common agenda, including a focus on a green economy transition here in the Caribbean. There are clear benefits for both sides. And we understand in the Caribbean that it is a two-way street. So for us in the Caribbean, there are many opportunities for the UK. Just to name one, given the imperative on our part for climate action. As one of the most climate vulnerable regions on the planet, we can capitalize on the UK's status as a world leader in the renewable sector, as we seek to revolve our economies around energy that is clean and green. Indeed, an ILO Inter-American Development Bank study indicated that a green economy transition here in the Caribbean will create an additional 400,000 jobs. Additionally, technology and innovation represent another area that's vital to us, especially in areas such as agriculture, which needs to be more climate resilient, so we can have the ability to feed our people in this highly climate vulnerable region. For our businesses, the UK represents a major high-value market for our existing and potential exporters as we seek to leverage exports to create jobs and earn valuable foreign exchange. As we tap into the creativity of our people to generate jobs and opportunity, services is yet another option for those who are involved in the sector. Indeed, between 2008 and 2019, total services exports to the UK from the region have climbed from US dollars 1.54 billion to US 1.96 billion. It is important to note that beyond travel services, insurance and pension services, as well as personal, cultural, and recreational services and other business services registered overall growth of 233%, 157%, and 32% respectively. This is a strong indication of where the opportunities for expanding services lay. Whether it's the areas just cited, or the business of music, or the business of fashion, we at Caribbean Export believe that the services sector is the next frontier for Caribbean business. Having made these initial comments, the obvious question arises, well, how can this be done? I'm proposing just a few initial steps to breathe life into this economic partnership agreement. Firstly, we need to provide targeted capacity building support for Caribbean businesses so they can take advantage of the opportunities under this agreement. In doing so, we need to pay particular attention to our micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises who form the backbone of economies across our region. According to the Caribbean Development Bank, this sector, MSMEs, account for up to 85% of enterprises, 60 to 70% of GDP, and approximately 50% of employment across the Caribbean. Therefore, if you want to advance the trade and investment agenda, to create jobs and opportunity, you need to focus on the sector that can give you the maximum results at a time when jobs and opportunity are both precious commodities. The clear emphasis must be where it matters, on the ground, and with a forensic focus on enterprises across the region. Secondly, information is truly power. Therefore, we must make information or market intelligence available on a real-time basis on the opportunities that exist under this agreement to businesses here in the Caribbean and in the UK. First, at the Caribbean Export Development Agency, we have used this model serving as a knowledge broker to support business, and it works since it is vital to have a one-stop, non-stop shop providing market intelligence in real time to the private sector. However, just focusing on supporting business and knowledge will give only suboptimal results. And therefore, we need to stress alternative means and measures. The use of technology, as we are doing today with 500 people registering in the United Kingdom and in the Caribbean. Earlier this month, we supported Trinidad and Tobago in their first ever virtual investment summit. And at that virtual investment summit, we were able to support Trinidad and Tobago to bring together close to 700 investors or business people from around 61 countries. So we intend to continue to leverage technology to build that relationship and build a bridge between the United Kingdom and the Caribbean. As I end my presentation today, it would be remiss of me if I don't thank all the colleagues from the United Kingdom and from my office, Demi and the colleagues who have worked tirelessly to make this event this morning possible. And I do hope it will lay a strong foundation for a long-term partnership between the Caribbean and the United Kingdom, leveraging on our inextricable historical and people-to-people ties to create jobs and opportunity for our people, both sides of the Atlantic. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Deodat. We will now move on in our agenda. I would like to invite Mr. Jonathan Knott, the Magistrates Trade Commissioner for Latin America and the Caribbean. Oh, yes. We will now have a virtual pre-recorded address from the Honorable Minister of Trade in the UK, Mr. Ranil Jayawardena.
Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to welcome you all to this summit, whether you are joining us from the Caribbean or here in the United Kingdom, as our governments come together for the first time to celebrate the CARIFORUM-UK Economic Partnership Agreement. This marks a new beginning in our trade and investment relations between our countries. As island nations at the crossroads of some of the world's great trade routes, it's only natural that Britain and the countries of the Caribbean look to global commerce as a bedrock of growth. And this economic partnership agreement provides just such an opportunity. It ensures that vital continuity is provided for British and Caribbean businesses on a trade relationship worth nearly £3 billion last year. And it lays a solid foundation upon which we will deepen our trade ties in the months and years ahead. This agreement permanently brings down barriers to trade between Britain and the Caribbean, opening the door to growth and building new bonds of prosperity across the Atlantic. It means lower tariffs, giving Caribbean businesses duty-free, quota-free access to the British market, And it benefits British businesses too, as CARIFORUM states gradually reduce their tariffs on the vast majority of our goods over the next 12 years. This will not only make it easier to get high-quality British products onto Caribbean shelves, but it will provide a massive boost for the region's world-class producers and exporters too. It also offers exciting opportunities in trade in services, which represents the significant majority of business done between us. This is a mutually beneficial deal for Britain and the nations of the Caribbean, supporting jobs, generating growth, and unlocking our shared trading potential. And we are already seeing the fruits of this endeavour, with British exports to CARIFORUM nations now up more than 3% year on year, despite the pandemic. And we hope to see a similar boost to our imports from the Caribbean over the next 12 months. We have welcomed investment successes, including Jamaica National Bank becoming the first Caribbean bank licensed to operate here in Britain, with a physical presence in Brixton in London. The bank will use a digital platform to reach British and European customers too. And we look forward to forging even more business ties between our economies in the future. I know that 12 of our CARIFORUM partners are Commonwealth countries, and this makes the agreement all the more special for Britain, helping to boost our efforts to strengthen trade ties with Commonwealth partners worldwide. The framework for this agreement has enormous potential, but we must work together to harness the opportunity it brings, using it as a platform from which we can go further and faster in future in boosting our trade and investment between our nations. Because certain trade agreements are rightly criticised for stagnating as legal texts that are left to gather dust on shelves in government offices. But I am committed to making sure this does not happen with this deal. It must instead be a meaningful, living deal, a deal that will bring about tangible progress, unlocking trade-led growth. I know that this is a commitment that we all share, a determination I anticipate seeing in abundance when I join my CARIFORUM ministerial counterparts for the EPA's inaugural Joint Council soon. That will be an important opportunity for discussion on the strategic direction of the agreement over the coming years. And central to this vision is a step change in our government's engagement with the existing and potential users of the EPA. We know that we must do more to make sure businesses are aware of its many benefits and understand how to capitalize on them. And that's why I'm so glad we've been able to convene today's summit with its focus on practical, real-world opportunities under this deal. And it's fitting that this week, as we do this, the Prime Minister's trade envoy to the Caribbean, Darren Henry, is leading a business delegation to Barbados. And of course, we're warming up for next week's visit to the region by His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales. All of this activity bears out our vision of a proactive, modern, forward-looking partnership between the United Kingdom and the Caribbean, with trade and economic cooperation as its cornerstone. This agreement opens an exciting new chapter in our relationship. So let us grasp that opportunity together, harnessing the benefits that only trade can deliver. I wish you all a fantastic summit and very much hope to be with you in person soon.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Ranil Jayawardena, Minister of International Trade for the United Kingdom. Moving along on with our agenda, I would now like to invite Mr. Jonathan Knott, Her Majesty's Trade Commissioner to Latin America and the Caribbean, to give us some remarks this morning. Mr. Knott.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, if you're joining us from the UK, from Europe. I'm Jonathan Knott. I'm Her Majesty's Trade Commissioner for Latin America and the Caribbean. And in case you're not familiar with what a Trade Commissioner does, my job essentially is to increase the flows of trade between the UK and Latin America and the Caribbean, and the flows of investment too. That is a task simply and quickly said, but not so straightforward, which is why I'm so happy to be able to be with you this afternoon, the people in person here in Barbados, in Bridgetown, but also remotely. I took up my role in February this year, ladies and gentlemen. Since then, I've managed to visit the Caribbean virtually. I've been able to visit, for example, Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago virtually with action-packed agendas, meeting government, meeting business. But it is so much nicer, so much better to be able to have this kind of event. We're still doing this in a hybrid way, so we're able to meet people personally, but also connect, I hope, with people online. I hope we can do that. I hope we can share sincere, simple and important messages so much better now that we can do this in a different way. And I hope it feels like that, not just in the room, but also online. But before I get into the subject, before I get into really the substance of what we're here today to talk about, I wanted to thank all of the team who have been involved in pulling this hybrid event together, this important event together. So I wanted to thank Deodat and his team at the Caribbean Export Development Agency for their brilliant work that they put in to organize this summit. But also the UK Department for International Trade team, who I know have been working super closely with them to be able to deliver this event for everyone out there, everyone online today. So a big, big thank you for making this real. I think the most important people to thank, though, are all of the participants in today's discussion, ladies and gentlemen. Those who are contributing their presentations, their case studies, but also, if I may, all of you online as well, who've taken time out of your schedules to really engage on what for us in the UK government is such an important topic and issue, this UK CARIFORUM EPA. I think, as Minister Jayawardena has just put it in the message which she's offered us, this summit is all about making a step change in the way our governments engage, but also in the way that our businesses engage through the use of this agreement, an agreement which must facilitate, which must help us grow this business relationship. And I hope, as we've just heard, that with more than 500 people online, the vast majority businesses, that's a first step, that's a first indication of the levels of interest, of the level of potential that we have for this business, this commercial relationship to flourish even further than it has so far. In fact, this business-centered agenda is really central to the UK's international trade agenda, our work, my work. As you might know, the UK government published just last week a new export strategy. And the goal of that strategy is to get the UK to export £1 trillion worth of goods and services by the end of this decade. It's ambitious, but we believe that with determination and energy, enabling businesses to do the businesses which they can, that is achievable. And at the heart of that challenge for us is a culture change. Culture change around government, a culture change around how we try to enable business. It's a change which gears what we do, what I and my team of 170 people up and down this continent, and including the Caribbean. It's a change in culture where we want to enable companies here in the Caribbean and in the UK to make the most of our trade agreements, not just sign agreements, but actually see the benefits build up. As Anne-Marie Trevelyan, our Secretary of State for International Trade, said when she was launching this new export strategy, free trade agreements are the lifeblood of business and my international trade department, but they won't mean anything if businesses don't take advantage of them. And she went on, I'd add that I'm here referring to businesses in our partner countries as well, because that's a really important thing, ladies and gentlemen. For us in the UK, good trade is good for everybody. This isn't about trade balances. This is about encouraging good trade. So we want to make it easy for British companies to do business here. We want to make it easy for Caribbean CARIFORUM businesses to be able to come and do good business in the UK. That's in both of our interests. But let's take a step back. Let's consider the trade agreements that businesses will be taking advantage of. The CARIFORUM-UK EPA came into effect at the start of this year, at the start of 2021. This agreement was and is part of a wider programme to ensure trade continuity as the UK left the European Union. And in under 2 years, the UK government has secured trade agreements with 63 countries. Total UK trade, I beg your pardon, total UK trade with those countries in 2020 was worth £185 billion. That's unprecedented. No other country has ever negotiated so many trade deals simultaneously, and we're proud and happy with that. But we're not satisfied, ladies and gentlemen, because we also have an ambitious programme of new FTA negotiations, including enhanced deals with Japan, an agreement with Australia. We're negotiating with New Zealand. We've begun negotiations to join the CPTPP, that's the Pacific Alliance of Countries. And we've roadmaps for negotiations on new trade deals, new FTAs with Canada and with Mexico, as well as India. All of this adds up to an ambition to have 80% of the trade which the UK does, bilateral trade going both ways, 80% of that covered by trade agreements by 2023, within 2 years from now. And the CARIFORUM-UK EPA is a crucial part of that strategy, a crucial part of what we want and are doing, a crucial part of a global network of economic partnerships. And while it replicates some of the effects of the EU EPA, the agreement which we've come to between CARIFORUM and the UK was still a really major undertaking for us. It took 4 years of hard work and was brilliantly executed in the end by both sides. We are so satisfied, so pleased that we were able to do that for the beginning of this year. In that context, I'm sure this has been said before, but a sincere thanks to the governments and the negotiators from the CARIFORUM side, from the states involved there, from us, for the success that we've had. Now, as Minister Jayawardena has just said, the EPA brings with it major benefits for goods and services exporters. But the extent to which these benefits are going to be realized depends on what we collectively now do with this agreement that we have, with this agreement that's now in place. On our side, the UK government is absolutely committed to a full and effective implementation of the EPA. Now, there's an important government-to-government, G2G element to all of this. The EPA establishes joint institutions between the UK and CARIFORUM states. These are vital channels for dialogue between EPA partners. And they'll ensure that this agreement is implemented as it's been agreed. And that's where our focus is right now. In recognition of our shared commitment for an ambitious approach to this EPA, UK and CARIFORUM ministers committed just this March to ensure these institutions began meeting this year. And I'm pleased to say that we're well on our way to meeting that commitment, with senior officials from the UK and CARIFORUM states coming together for successful Trade and Development Committee meetings just last month, and with a ministerial joint council, again, which Minister Jayawardena has referred to, happening by the end of this year. But of course, as I mentioned before, we must also be ambitious in our approach to the EPA commitments themselves. So they're not just things written on paper, that they make a difference. As businesses in the UK develop their own export strategy and businesses in the Caribbean look to source imports and find partners, they should and will be considering the rules that govern this trading relationship and any costs that that brings with them. That's something basic for business, isn't it? Knowing that EPA commitments are being met gives confidence. It gives predictability to those businesses so they can make their plans during the course of years ahead, which I'm hoping those businesses online right now are in the process of doing. For similar reasons, we're working with CARIFORUM states to ratify the EPA as soon as possible. And we think that's going to send an important signal to the international business community, investors and traders alike. We're also reducing non-tariff barriers, disadvantaging our businesses. And the EPA is going to be a critical tool in resolving those barriers as well. Let me give you an example. Recently, we've been working with the local authorities in the Dominican Republic to remove barriers on UK powdered milk exports. Now that reinforces the commitment made by the UK and CARIFORUM ministers early in the year to reduce market access barriers. This is a demonstration, if you like, to businesses out there that we are making this trading environment easier, better, more profitable, so that both sides can prosper through it. But of course, the EPA is also a development agreement. It's a trade and development agreement. Those two sides of the same coin, one feeding the other, one leading on from the other. And that's very much how we view trade and development in the UK. The UK recognizes that as mostly small island developing states, the Caribbean region faces a unique set of challenges, which can and which often do hinder trade. And of course, I note and saw with some dismay that the region has been one of the worst affected by the economic and human cost of the pandemic. In addition to that, the risks from climate change have never been more present, nor more real than they are right now for this region. The COP in Glasgow, which Deodat referred to so kindly, has kept the ambition of 1.5 degrees centigrade alive. But so much more needs to be done to address that, the world's greatest challenge. And again, this is an opportunity for trade to help deliver solutions, our businesses to contribute to states' strategies for controlling climate change. At the same time, ladies and gentlemen, this region holds some phenomenal opportunities, world-class creative services, huge investment opportunities in tourism, and some of the world's most distinctive food and drink offers. And I have to say, I'm very envious that the trade mission are going to be visiting the Mount Gay rum distillery tomorrow, and I'm going to be missing out on that, unfortunately. But opportunities abound across the blue, green, and orange economies here, all driven by the region's incredible human capital. In that context, the UK government is committed to providing support to CARIFORUM states to effectively implement the EPA and capitalize on its opportunities. As I said before, for us, this is about good trade. This is about both sides taking advantage of those opportunities and prospering. That's one of the reasons that we've launched the UK Trade Partnerships Programme in the Caribbean last year. And we'll be hearing a little bit more about that later in the day. So let me finish, ladies and gentlemen, by talking about this modern, this open, this prosperous partnership that we have in our grasp. Because this EPA, this CARIFORUM-UK EPA, opens a new chapter for us in our trade relationship. Today's summit kicks off a new type of trade partnership. Our governments, working really closely with agencies like Caribbean Export, and also, and importantly, ladies and gentlemen, with you, businesses. We want to deepen the understanding of what this EPA offers, show what it can do to help businesses do what they do best. We want to use all of our policy levers to make this a successful and even more successful business relationship. But in order to do that, we need to hear from business itself. Governments, officials, talking with each other are important, but a vital element is that all of our guests online today feel able, feel energized, have the confidence, please, to bring up issues, to tell us what works, what doesn't work, what they're worried about, what they'd like to see more of, what they'd like to see less of. What are the barriers that we need to move away so that this relationship can grow? So I really hope this will be a super interactive session during the course of the morning and afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm in the Caribbean this week. My responsibilities are across the continent, as you've heard. I'm here in Barbados at the moment. I'm moving to Trinidad at the end of my week. My hope is that as I leave the Caribbean, I can take with me a series of actions which my team and I can take action on. Concrete elements, concrete things which we can do to help this business relationship gather energy, to help our businesses find new partners together. So please help us, help me to do that. Please be active. Please give us lots and lots of feedback. Let me finish by thanking you for welcoming me to the Caribbean. Thank you for your time today, everyone. And I really look forward to some super active, super involved sessions. We've got a fantastic opportunity here. Let's make the most of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jonathan Nutt, for those wonderful remarks. I think I would like to reflect on what you said, and certainly the partnerships that we're going to be building using this EPA to expand trade and investment is going to be very, very valuable. And I really think that agencies like Caribbean Export and our colleagues in the UK will really work very hard to make sure that it's realized and it becomes a reality. So I now have the honor of introducing the Honorable Ms. Marcia Carroll, Minister in the Division of Economic Affairs and Investment for the Government of Barbados. She will bring to us our keynote address this morning entitled Realizing the Potential of the CARIFORUM Economic Partnership Agreement. The Honorable Minister Carroll is joining us online, so we will now switch over so she can deliver those keynote remarks. Minister Carroll.
Thank you. Good morning, friends and colleagues all, and a special welcome to Mr. Darren Henry and his team who are joining us from the UK. Welcome. We hope you enjoy the weather and the camaraderie and the hospitality of this Caribbean region. We're very happy to have you with us. Now, I want to share just a few thoughts with you, and forgive me if I pick up on Jonathan's earlier remarks by inviting us to have a conversation, and also by just sharing some thoughts that are fresh for us in the context of the pandemic, fresh for us in the context of the global supply chain issues, and in particular, fresh for us when it comes to the recent discussions in Glasgow and the climate crisis that we are all experiencing. Now more than ever, as we see, supply chain issues are plaguing the world. Now, we are in a place where small island developing states like those that make up CARIFORUM are really vulnerable in the context of the international economic system. Large states are less dependent than we are on trade, on travel, on level playing fields and rule-based systems. We all know all of those who are joining us online who run small companies and medium companies and large companies all know that we are extremely open. We have imports and exports that total more than our GDP on average. We are extremely sensitive to the fortunes of the international system. And if you take out countries who are also extremely vulnerable to war and conflict, of the 20 hardest hit countries globally by the pandemic, you will find that small island states dominate those countries, including countries like the Bahamas, Barbados, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Lucia, and others. So for us, our role in the global system, our role in the international system is facing a test. But that system itself is also facing a test. Because today there is a convergence of vulnerability to trade dependency and to the climate crisis. And so I'm happy to see that in the context of this CARIFORUM-UK Economic Partnership Agreement, there's specific reference to investment and climate as areas in which we need to strengthen and deepen our partnership. Friends and colleagues, I think that we have to learn, and we have to learn very quickly from what we witnessed around the issues of distribution of vaccines during this pandemic, where we saw that developed countries, those countries that could easily afford it, were able to secure 5 times more than they actually needed in terms of access to the vaccines. And what that meant was that poor countries were prevented from getting access. Now, it also meant that our global capacity to respond to the pandemic from a health perspective, from an economic perspective, was compromised, because what we saw were the promulgation of different variants that helped to undermine national capacity to suppress the spread of the pandemic. And so the pandemic has reminded us how interdependent we are, but it's also reminded us of our common humanity and the fact that we go nowhere unless we go together. Why am I talking about this? Because it showed us the role of mechanisms like global clearinghouses for things like vaccines, which are critical public goods, and for things like the new tools that we have to develop for climate change mitigation and for adaptation to the climate crisis. We have to develop these kinds of clearinghouses, these new institutions for global distribution of public goods now. But I also want to say that there's something else that CARIFORUM countries like ours need in the context of this international system. And what we need really is our rules-based systems that give people a certain comfort and predictability, as Jonathan was just making reference to, so that they understand the environment in which their companies are working, the environment in which they are moving for purposes of trading goods and services, and the environment in which their families will be able to thrive. We need a rules-based system that is internationally agreed and impartially applied, including on the publication of lists that may restrict trade and finance. The need for these kinds of rules-based systems is one of the reasons why we so welcome the long-fought and valiantly and well-negotiated new CARIFORUM-UK Economic Partnership Agreement. Now, we in this region must do our part to make sure that this agreement becomes and has life and is practical for the companies, for the people that are going to need to take advantage of it, that are going to want to not just expand, but deepen their integration with the region, with the rest of the world, and importantly, with our friends in the UK. For that reason, we in the Caribbean, and particularly in Barbados, and I know our colleagues around the CARIFORUM region, have done a lot of work on our regulatory regimes and our regulatory systems. And in particular, one of the things that we've had to focus on is the ease of doing business not just for large companies, but in particular for small companies, for medium enterprises. We know that when we're talking about countries with populations the sizes that we have, really when we talk about small companies, in a lot of cases, we're talking about companies that are run by perhaps 1 or 2 people, that have small staff, that are in emerging industries, and also those that are managed and run by women that we know have different kinds of challenges and that need to be supported in new and different and innovative ways in order to take advantage of the regional and global environment. And what are the kinds of things that those companies need? In Barbados, for example, we have the Enterprise Growth Fund Limited. And what we are doing is making sure that the EGFL is and becomes the kind of institution that is fit for purpose, that is able to provide the kind of support at the national level that Caribbean Export Development Agency has had such success in helping to provide at the national and regional level for countries in this Caribbean region. We need the kinds of models like accelerators and incubators and the kinds of financial literacy support that are going to help companies fill the gaps in knowledge, but are also going to help them to be able to reach out on new and growing kinds of technology platforms. So let me say something now about that role of technology. You know, there is a lot of scope at the national level for us to deepen our understanding of and engagement with technology, but there's also a lot of scope for regional cooperation on telecommunications and technology. We've known for some time that the direction, the bulk of trade is no longer crossing just airports and seaports, but really internet ports. World trade is now being increasingly driven into a few channels that are controlled by a few technology companies. So we want to make sure that where there is technological commerce, where there are platforms that, for example, the UK can help companies have access to, including their own, that companies in the region are ready to be able to sell in that environment. Now, there are regulatory things that we have to do in our countries and in our region, but we also have to make sure that at the regional level, there is regulation, regional regulation of these kinds of gateways to ensure equal access, to ensure fair access, and to have an input into who is really driving the algorithms that are channeling that kind of traffic. We're witnessing the greatest privatization right now of trade infrastructure. And we have to make sure that this region is able to have an input into the regulatory framework to ensure trade and development in that environment. Now, I also want to be able to say something about the role of green investment. Now, in our recent negotiations at COP26, there were certain, I would say, very important successes for the region. And again, I want to join Deodat in congratulating the UK government, but also really congratulating us all for our cooperation with the UK government and our cooperation with each other in this region to be able to, as small island states, have our voices heard and to have an input into the new financial mechanisms for addressing the climate crisis. And I want to say briefly a little bit about those mechanisms. This Glasgow Climate Pact is perhaps the first time that we've seen specific reference to financial instruments that are going to get us the scale that is required to be able to respond with the urgency that is required. And this is a scale with respect to finance. Now, we've seen and we've heard a lot of discussion about the 100 billion annually, and we welcome the fact that there has been agreement to double the proportion of finance for climate adaptation, which our countries need. But what our countries also need as we take part in that green transition, and this is not just for specific green companies, but also for all kinds of businesses that are able to green their operations. What we also need to see is private investment in these kinds of technologies. What we discussed in Glasgow is the fact that the amount of financing that the region is attracting now will not be able to fill the gap, will not be able to meet the scale for what we need. We were able to have in the Glasgow outcome specific reference to the use of instruments like special drawing rights. And what is the importance of this kind of instrument? If we can have a financial instrument that is able to meet the scale, the International Monetary Fund issued 650 billion in special drawing rights this year and have set aside 50 billion for Sustainability and Resilience Trust. What we need to see is not just in this issuance of special drawing rights, but what we need to see is that there can be a reliable and predictable flow of these kinds of assets to be able to on-lend to the private sector globally, so that we can have consistent and predictable investment in the green economy, in renewable energy, in the kinds of things that are going to allow us to reduce our emissions in the region, but importantly, to adapt to the climate crisis. This for us in the region is the future of climate response, is the future of climate action. And we need to be able to make sure that we are crowding in that investment through the mechanisms that we establish. But it's not only international investment that we need. We have in CARICOM region, we estimate about $50 billion in savings. Now, what we want to be able to do through those savings is create real wealth for real people, including companies. And what we need to do is to be able to find the financial instruments and the mechanisms to allow people to have those savings work for them, but also work for the development of the region. We know that things like growth and resilience funds, where there's a market created of investable projects that people can invest in and have a significant return, for example, in renewable energy projects, is one of the ways to do that. And what I would like to see is for this region to work together and with the UK to be able to establish that kind of marketplace. In Barbados, we have our Roofs to Reefs program, which is exactly that. It's an investment plan for a resilient Barbados. And I know that other countries in the CARIFORUM region are developing similar programs. Finally, friends and colleagues, I think that we all need to be driven by the people at the heart of this process, those who are joining us online in particular, those small and medium enterprises that are at the heart of commerce and trade and economic activity in our region. Whatever the new economy is, whatever the new trade frameworks look like, whatever they deliver, they have to be able to put people and the creation of wealth at the center. Now, for some time in the region, we've had a narrative of poverty reduction, and that's important. It is important to understand that there is an income poverty line that we have to address. It is important to make sure that fewer and fewer people fall below that poverty line. But I have another challenge for us, and that is the real creation of intergenerational wealth for the people of the CARIFORUM region and globally through these kinds of trade frameworks. So we have to target more than the absence of poverty. We have to target prosperity through trade. Now, I want to also highlight the fact that, you know, more and more young people and their ideas and their innovative approaches to income generation and to economic activity also have to be at the center of what we do and what we aim for. And so these kinds of agreements have to be able to reach people where they are, to reach young people in the ways that they interact, and to provide a clear roadmap of opportunities for how young people can engage, not just with their immediate environment, but how young people can engage with the world. I want to salute again the work of all those who have been involved in putting this summit together. I want to encourage the work of Caribbean Export Development Agency in making sure that the tenets, the aspects of this agreement that people need to understand, people need to access, are readily available to them, that the kinds of support that companies need to be able to thrive in these new frameworks are available. Caribbean Export has done tremendous work in that regard, and we look forward to it continuing. Friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I want to wish you a wonderful summit, and I look forward to the outcomes of your deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Marsha Cattle, for those inspiring words. I think Caribbean Export and our colleagues at the UK will take them to heart, especially when it comes to the small and medium-sized enterprises and the business persons who are actually undertaking trade and undertaking business, and will really benefit and will drive trade and investment between both regions. I think that's the purpose of this summit today, is to really, how can we distill this agreement so that small, medium-sized enterprises and business persons can benefit and expand their trade. And I know for a fact that we're going to continue to work together in a strong partnership to make sure that this work is ongoing over the next few years with regards to the UK EPA. So ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our opening session. I would like, before we move on to the second session, I would like to acknowledge the work of our colleagues and on the UK side, the UK Department of International Trade, Ms. Laura Ferguson, Mr. Dan Hart, Ms. Jamila Ward, and the remainder of her team. They have worked really closely with Caribbean Export Development Agency in putting this summit together, and I would be remiss if I don't acknowledge their hard work. So thank you so much. So we will now have a brief 1-minute interlude while we set up for the second session, where we will discuss the findings of our recently commissioned study to explore potential for future trade and investment between the Caribbean and the UK using the EPA. So thank you so much, and we will move on to the second session.